Hi, it's Cece, and today we are doing a layered epoxy pour. I've had a lot of people ask me how to do the layered epoxy with embedded sparkly foils and leaf and German glass glitter and things like that. So I'm gonna do a video. This one is not gonna be quite as many layers as I typically do, 7 or 8 layers of epoxy. This one's not gonna be quite as many, but once you get the idea, you just kind of repeat the process. So I will go ahead and show you how we are starting, which is with this wooden dresser here. I went ahead and I taped around the edges, okay, where I don't want the epoxy to be, and or to end up anyways. And I put plastic wrap all around securely, because the epoxy can get heavy when it kind of cures on the plastic wrap, and it can pull it down, weigh it down, and pull it right off. So that is why I secured it with lots of tape. So our top was sanded wood, okay, and then I primed it with an adhesion primer, and then I did 2 coats of Stardust Metallic from Paint Couture Paint Company, which is this really pretty metallic. They have the best metallics. Look how pretty the metallics are. Anyways, that's our base coat. A lot of times I like to use white as a base coat because it makes the colors really stand out when they're mixed with the epoxy and poured on. It just helps them pop. So a lot of times I'll do white or a metallic or whatever, whatever color fits with your piece or your, color scheme for your pour. That's what you want to go with. Let's see. And then I added some gold leaf. So I took a brush and I just plopped some, or kind of dry brush, I guess, sort of some adhesive all over the top, kind of random patches. Nothing, no like specific place, just random patches. And I applied my gold leaf once that was dry to attack. And I like to do this on the bottom layer because I'm going to do a clear layers on top, which is going to really, when the metallic's underneath the clear layers, it really makes it look deep and sparkly and pretty. So that is what we've done so far. Now we're gonna go ahead and mix up our epoxy resin. I use Pro-Marine for the most part. I use Pro-Marine tabletop epoxy. It's crystal clear, which is what you want. You want crystal clear. You don't want fast casting or quick set or anything like that for a tabletop pour. It's not clear for one, and then it's gonna set up way too fast. And you can embed stuff in it all you want, but it's not going to show because it's opaque white. So when I am measuring out epoxy resin, I like to use a digital scale when I'm doing molds and smaller amounts of epoxy, because by weight it's a little bit more accurate. But I'm going to be doing this by volume. When I mix up this much epoxy, I like to do it by volume. So I use these little paint cups. This is a 32 ounce, and I like to use the milliliters for accuracy. So I'm gonna go ahead and mix up 300 and 300, so 600 milliliters. Actually, for our clear layer, I'm gonna go ahead and mix up for our clear layer, I'm trying to figure out how much based on my tabletop. I want to mix up 500 milliliters, okay? So you want to do equal parts A and B, okay? This is the Pro-Marine epoxy, tabletop epoxy that I use. There's B and there's A. You want 1-to-1 ratio. So I'm going to go ahead and pour in 250 milliliters of A and then 250 milliliters of B, equaling 500 milliliters. So you want to get that in there. And oh gosh, goodness gracious. Pop goes the epoxy. What did I say, 250 and 250? And boom. Oh, a little bit more. Wow. There, right at 250. Boom. Okay, so this is going to be our clear layer. Now, on top of our base coat and our gold leaf, we're gonna pour just a clear layer of epoxy, okay? Okay, so got that up to the 500, so 250 and 250. Oh man, you know what? I need some gloves. Let me grab my gloves, which are right somewhere. There they are. If you're working with epoxy all day, every day, or very, very, very often, you want to wear a respirator or other PPE. I don't work with it every single day or all day ever, so I work in a well-ventilated area. But I do wear gloves because it's sticky. If anything else, it's just really sticky, and you can use mineral spirits to get it out of your hair. Oh, I hear. You know, a friend told me that, you know. All right, so we've got our 500 mils of clear epoxy, and I'm gonna go ahead and mix another 500 milliliters. So another 250 and 250. And the reason I'm doing that is because one is our clear layer. We're gonna lay down a clear layer first. And then our second, we're gonna split up into different cups and add a little bit of paint to it to color it, okay? But I might as well have them both handy at one time. So let's see. Let's start with A. Always a 1-to-1 ratio. So let's see, let's get you up to the 250 bad boy. Come in. 250 or bust. And I bet you that's right. One little dollop short. Ooh, there we go. I bet you that's perfect. Okay, yup, perfect. So 250 of B up to the 500. And you have an open working time of a while. You have open working time of at least an hour until it starts to set up, but even then you can still probably mess with it for a couple hours, you know, if you need to pick a hair out or blast a bubble out with the heat gun, you know. But when you're mixing the epoxy, the two parts, the important part is that you get it mixed very, very, very thoroughly, because if you don't, it won't set up and you'll have a sticky, gooey mess on your hands, which is almost impossible to bounce back from. So make sure you scrape the sides of your cup, okay, with your stick or whatever you're stirring with. Scrape the bottom of your cup, okay, and then I like to go up and down when I'm mixing too to kind of get it all mixed up really, really well. Spend the extra time mixing it up, because if you don't, you will be sorry. You will be kicking yourself in the butt if you don't get it all the way mixed up right, very thoroughly, I mean, for real. Okay, so now I'm gonna go ahead and mix up our other little doohickey here of the clear epoxy. And this one, like I said, one is for our clear layer, and then the other we're going to pour into these cups separately. We're gonna add a tiny bit of paint, and that's gonna color our epoxy. There's all different types of additives, colors, mica, pigments, glitters, all kinds of things you can buy to add to your epoxy to color it or sparkle it or anything you can possibly think of. Make it metallic, you know, whatever. I just like to use a tiny bit of paint to color it. It always works great for me, and a little bit of German glass glitter, some foils. That's what I like to use for the best amount of sparkle. And make sure you scrape the sides of your cup, scrape the bottom of your cup. I like to whip it up and down. Make sure you get it all mixed up, yeah. Okay, so when you are mixing it up like this, it gets a lot of air bubbles in it, obviously, so make sure you have a heat gun handy, which we do, our heat gun handy, or possibly a hairdryer. I don't know, I guess if you have a really sweet hairdryer. I like to use a heat gun though, and I like to use my hairdryer for my hair, and I don't like to mix the two. Epoxy and hair don't mix, but somehow I always seem to get them crossed. Okay, see all the bubbles that are coming up now? Those will continue to come up as, you know, after we pour our epoxy, so that's what our heat gun's for. So let's go ahead and go pour our clear layer of epoxy first. Ooh. Now what this does is it lays a base for our epoxy to kind of fluidly move on, if that makes sense. So let's see if we can scoot you back here. All right, how's that? I think we can see from here. Yay, that's perfect. Okay, so I've got my stick, my epoxy, my heat guns right there, and I've got a little bit of German glass glitter that I'm going to throw in there after I pour my epoxy. The reason why I'm not putting my glass glitter down first is because I don't want it to move. If I put it in there after I pour my epoxy or my clear layer, it will stay just a little bit better. You know what I'm saying? So, or my color layer, sorry. Okay, so I'll show you what I'm talking about. I'm gonna stop talking so much and start pouring more. So our clear layer, like I said, it just helps to make the colorful layer more fluid and move around on the top like we want it to, okay? Not just kind of set there and, you know, not move. So we're just gonna start by pouring their clear layer all over, and make sure you scrape as much as you can out of the cup because epoxy is expensive, y'all. You want to use every last drop. Okay, so epoxy is very fluid. It likes to move around. Oh, really? Okay, so it likes to move around. So as you can see, it's kind of spreading out on its own a little bit. I'm just gonna help it out with my paint stick here. I'm gonna spread it just like I would a cake, frosting on a cake. I'm gonna try to cover the whole top with a light layer or thin-ish layer. And I wanna try to get it as even as possible all over the top, okay? So it's not obviously gonna be perfect, but I can try, right? Try to get my thin layer fairly even all the way across the top. And then at some point, after you have the entire top covered, you're gonna wanna gently scoot a little bit off the sides, just a little bit, because it will just roll off the sides. You don't wanna lose all your epoxy, but you wanna scoot it gently off the sides. That way it rolls over the edge and it covers the edge of your piece, okay? Some types of pieces are made such that I can tape up the edges to hold in the epoxy, okay? This is not that type of piece, so it needs to roll over the edges. So we're going to gently let it roll over. And I have a tarp down, okay? Don't fret, I have a tarp down, and you should too, because this is messy, and you don't want it all over your floor because it will never come up. Most likely never come up, depending on what your floor is made of, but it doesn't come off my floor. Hear it dripping? Okay, so our top is covered. Now we're just kind of coaxing it gently over some of the edges to get it to, you know, spill right off the edge. And don't worry if you don't get it perfect. When we get the heat gun, we will help it to, wow, I am so messy when it comes to epoxy. So messy, so messy. Wowza. Okay, so I've got it pretty evenly all across the top, well, as much as I can for now. And we're gonna go ahead and grab our heat gun. Heat gun, heat gun. Heat gun, heat gun, and okay, I think we're done with this stick for now. And voila. So now I'm gonna grab my heat gun and I'm going to gently go over it. And I don't know if you can see on the camera, probably not, but I can see the bubbles start popping immediately. Okay, the bubbles will just start popping, they'll start coming out. You don't want to hold your gun in place too long because you will burn your epoxy. You can definitely burn epoxy, and that's not what we want. That's a no bueno, okay? Okay. So right now we're just heating it up to get the bubbles out. We don't want bubbles. And then we're gonna heat along the edge. Remember where it was dripping off and rolling off the sides? If we heat it, it will melt, it'll heat it up just a little bit to where it can evenly cover our sides. We don't want lumps and bumps and all that kind of stuff if we can help it, right? Okay, there's that. All right, so that's our clear layer. Easy peasy, right? Am I right? Easy peasy. Now we're gonna go back and get our other little 32-ounce cup, paint cup of epoxy here that's clear. Remember, we already mixed it up. It's not gonna hurt just to give it one more little mix, okay? So let's just give it one more little mix, and then we're gonna separate it out into our other paint cups. So I have some smaller paint cups here. You can use solo cups, whatever you have that's disposable preferably, or silicone if you have silicone cups. But who has silicone cups? Not that many people. So I have got 4 cups here, but I only need 3 of them because I'm going to be doing Polynesian Pink from Paint Couture in one. This is a mix of Arctic White and Caribbean Coral from Paint Couture. And then this is a mix of Russian Red, Midnight Blue, 50-50, and into this kind of purple, which matches the colors of the dresser that I'm going to be, you know, embellishing, that we're doing this top on, this pour top on, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix equal parts. You don't have to do equal parts, okay? You can have more of one color, less of one color, or whatever. I highly suggest that if you have a dark color like black or navy, you only do a small amount of it. The lighter the color, the darker the color, the less you want. In my opinion, that's not a rule, but in my opinion, that is how it generally does best. So I'm gonna go ahead and pour about equal amounts, because these are all, you know, pink, purple. I'm gonna do about equal amounts, and actually I'll probably do a little less of the purple. So less of the purple, a little pink, a little peach, and then I'm gonna leave some clear, okay? So when you're measuring out your roughly equal amounts of epoxy, make sure you leave some clear, which is what I've got right here. I've got clear right here, okay, clear right here. Now when you're mixing in your paint, if you are using paint to color epoxy, you can use chalk paint, you can use acrylic paint, you can use any water-based paint. I've only used chalk mineral paint and acrylic paints. Paint Couture is acrylic mineral paint. I've used regular artist acrylic paint. Yeah. So I wouldn't recommend a oil-based paint. That would be kind of silly. But when you're putting your paint in, you just need a little tiny bit, because if you put in too much paint, it's going to set up your epoxy real quick like. So if you put in too much, stir it a little bit, it'll just harden up on you. So you want to add about, okay, so let's see. Let's just say I have about 100 milliliters of epoxy here. I just want like maybe 3/4 of a teaspoon at the most. Probably don't even need that much. And then I'm just gonna, you know, basically kind of dip my spoon in to get it covered, halfway covered, and then that's all the amount of epoxy you'll need, okay? So check it. See how that little, I just dipped my spoon in the paint, and then I mixed it up with the epoxy, and look, I already got this really pretty color, so easy peasy. Don't need much paint at all, unless you want a cured and hardened cured and hardened epoxy on your hands, which you want that, but not right quite yet. All right, so now we're gonna put in a little bit of this peach mixture that I created. Again, just maybe 3/4 of a teaspoon. Boom, boom, boom. Ooh, look how pretty. So we got peach, purple, and pink. That's gonna be beaut. It's gonna be beautiful. Goes with the flowers that she chose for her dresser. So you don't have to match the design of your dresser, but I think it kind of makes sense. Am I right? And then next we have got this purple that I mixed up. Pretty, pretty purple, my favorite color. Okay, so about 3/4 of a tablespoon, or half a teaspoon, I'm sorry, half a teaspoon, since we've got slightly less of the purple here. And mix it all up real good. There we go, purple epoxy. Purple epoxy, pink epoxy, peach epoxy. All right, so now we're gonna take our clear purple, pink, and peach, excuse me, over to our little area where we're pouring. There's a couple ways you can pour the epoxy, okay? So one method is to do a dirty pour, okay? That's where you pour them slowly all into one cup, one color on top of each other, slowly so they don't mix up too much. Then you put the cup upside down real quick, and then you slowly let it kind of come up on the clear layer. We're not gonna do a dirty pour today because I wanna have a little more control over it. So we're just gonna start with our darkest color and pour to our lightest color. That's what we's gonna do, okay? That's how we're gonna do this. So let's see, this is how I get my hair in my epoxy. It's no mystery. No mystery over here, you know? All right, so. All right, so let's go ahead and start with our our darkest color first. I like to start with my darkest. Actually, wait, do I start with the darkest or the lightest? Oh shoot. You know what, I start with the lightest, I'm sorry. Scratch that. You can start with the darkest or the lightest. It doesn't matter, but I do suggest that you go in order, okay? So darkest to lightest or lightest to darkest, doesn't make a difference. Pick one and go with it. We're gonna start with our lightest because we have the most of it, okay? And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to kind of create, okay, so I should say this, no matter what you really do, it's going to kind of do what it wants for the most part, and you can only manipulate it so much. But I'm gonna try to kind of think of veining in stone when I create my pours. So that's kind of how I like to pour, is just by thinking of how a veining in a marble or granite or something like that would go, even though that's not what this is gonna look like. That's how I like to just kind of figure out where I'm gonna place my pour. And like I said, it will change, so don't get too in a tizzy if, you know, it doesn't look exactly like it does when you first pour it. Okay, so there's our lightest color. Now we're gonna do our second to lightest color, which is our pink. And what I like to do is I just kind of like to follow that line, follow the leader, okay? Follow the leader. Okay, I try not to spread out my colors too much because I don't want to cover up that pretty metallic that I laid down and that gold leaf that I laid down. I want to leave areas where that's going to show through. So that's why I don't just start pouring colors all over willy-nilly on the top of this thing. Okay, now our darkest color. And so remember, we saved some of the clear back. We saved some of the clear epoxy. We're gonna use that in just a minute. First, I'm gonna take my heat gun and I'm gonna kind of blow out some of these colors and make them start kind of moving around and creating patterns. And then I'm gonna add the clear in spots where I feel like I wanna see through, okay? And the reason I wanna see through is because I put the pretty metallic and gold leaf down, so. that's what we're gonna do after we heat gun it a little bit. So grab a heat gun. And I'm just gonna kind of pop any air bubbles, okay? I'm gonna go over it and get rid of the air bubbles. Slowly kind of start to move the epoxy around. Without burning it. See how you can create ripples by heating it up just a little bit and pushing it towards the other colors? It creates those pretty ripples. Now you don't want to get too crazy because the more you blow the colors, the more you heat them up and blow them out, they can start to mix together and you just get a muddy look. So you want to keep the colors as separated as you can while getting them to kind of interact just a little bit. So there's a fine line in between too much and not enough. Okay. Okay, so now I'm going to take that clear epoxy that I have left over and I'm going to just pour a little bit. I don't even think I'm going to use all of it, but I'm going to pour a little bit of it into where these colors are kind of making big, huge pools. I'm just going to kind of squiggle through those just a little bit to break up those big chunks of color. Okay. See that big chunk of pink right there? We're just going to break that up like that and boom. Okay, so that's our clear epoxy. And I'm gonna heat that up one time real quick just to get rid of the air bubbles. Okay, so now that we've got our clear and then our color into the little flood layer of clear, I'm gonna add a little bit of German glass glitter, okay, just a little bit. The reason why I wanna do it now is because if I poured the epoxy over the glass glitter, it would move around a lot. If I just sprinkle it where I want it, it's made of glass, so it won't move around too much. I'm gonna grab a little spoon. Okay, German glass glitter is made from actual crushed glass. It's not kid friendly, it is sharp, and it will cut you. So you want to use a little spoon or a scoop or something like that, and don't touch it with your hands as much as possible because, like I said, glass cut you. So this is the German glass glitter, and this I got my German glass glitter from Paint Couture, and this is pure silver. But I love the pure silver because it kind of looks like diamonds, right? It's so pretty. So we're just gonna gently kind of sprinkle that on, just like we're cooking, and sprinkling in some salt or something. But I don't cook, so you know, you get where I'm going with that. So what I want to do is where I'm going to put the sparklies is I'm going to try to fill in patches that are like, see this big chunk of metallic, and then there's a big chunk of peach right here, a big chunk of clear. I want to just kind of break up the chunky chunks of color or clear. And I'm just going to keep that same kind of veining idea in mind that I was talking about earlier. And you don't want to lay it on too thick. You don't want to sprinkle it on too thick, because then you'll have to do several coats of epoxy to get it to even out and not be to not be a big lump, so you can't feel it. Okay, so let's do a little here, and it is going to move around a little bit, but that's okay. We want it to kind of, the fun part about pours is that you never know exactly what they're going to do. So we want it to move around a little bit, but not too much. We kind of want it in the general vicinity of where we're laying it, so. Okay, so after I get my glass glitter on my pour, I have to let this set up, okay? At the minimum 5 hours before I pour another clear layer over it. But I'm gonna let it sit overnight to be sure. But, so this is, basically one layer of epoxy, okay? We're gonna count it as one because it hasn't set up yet. So this is one layer of epoxy. After this is done, I will do 2 more clear layers. And what the clear layers do is they add depth, like you're looking into a pool or a looking glass or something like that. Okay, so after this is set up, I'll do 2 more clear layers. And remember me telling you that I usually do 7 or 8 layers? After those 2 clear layers set up, then I will do another layer of sparkle or foil or color, but just a little bit, okay? The more layers you do, as you build up in layers, you want to put less and less and less. You want more clear, more clear. That way you can see through it. Because what happens if I put a layer of color over this whole thing, it's going to cover it up. So we want more clear. The more you build up your layers, mo clear. Mo layers, mo layers, mo clear, okay? Make that easy to remember. Ooh, this is gonna be so pretty. This is gonna be pretty, I know it. It's already pretty, and it's not even got a clear layer on it yet. I wasn't planning on doing this on this tabletop, and my client saw my other pour top, and she goes, "Oh my gosh, I want that on my dresser top." I said, "Okay, I will hook you up. We'll hook you up." All right, so that's enough. Okay, you'll never hear me say that's enough sparkle, but in this case, we're done. Actually, just kidding. A little bit on the end here. A little bit on the end. A little corner spackle. Okay, corner spackle. Oh, and ran out a little bit here, falling off the edge. Don't forget the edges, okay? They need love too. All right, so I'm gonna give you a real quick close-up of this. We're gonna let it set up overnight, and then we're gonna do 2 more clear layers on top. Oh, sorry, that was my umbrella. All right, so let's move our ladder out of the way. Okay, so see our pretty glass glitter settling in there, settling into its new little home. All right, look at this pretty little whirl over here. I love looking at these. It's like looking from this, from space into a little planet. Look at the pretty glitters. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, the glitters. And then we'll come around here. Look at it. Isn't that such, I love this little area here. And it will change just a little bit. It will continue to change just a little bit overnight, but not a ton. Okay, at this point, it's not gonna change a ton, but it will continue to move around just a little bit. All right, so that's that. And we will pour our clear layers on top tomorrow after it's cured.